Hey lovies, today we are working on our Dollarween challenge. I have 3 easy Dollar Tree DIYs that you can try at home now. We still have a lot of time for the challenge, so if you're interested in making these, then keep on watching. Okay, so let's get started. So I have 3 DIYs, and the first 2 are, I guess, kind of moderate, and the last one is the easiest one. This year's challenge is all about the curio, the oddity. So this first DIY is lovingly called the Mermaid's Tail, and you'll see why. So the first thing we're going to grab is one of Dollar Tree's plaques. You can either get it in this round shape, they have square, they have so many. You can even use a square sign if you want a bigger piece. You're going to paint it black and really distress it. Now, where the mermaid's tail comes from is that there's this really cool skeleton that you see here that has like a fish tail. It's like a fish. It feels like it's a mermaid skeleton. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a piece of the tail that fits within the plaque. It would be so nice if I can use the whole thing, but I think half of it works. So what I'm starting to do here is paint it black first, because we're gonna go in with crackle. Crackle is really predominant in these DIYs. So if you love distressing like I do, crackle medium is such an awesome tool to get that distress look. Here are some pro tips to work with crackle. If you want your cracks big and more spread out, you don't necessarily want to wait for your crackle to dry all the way down. The drier the crackle, the finer the crack. Also, another good tip is to place your crackle in various different directions. If you do your crackle paint up and down, most likely your cracks are going to be up and down. And if you do them side to side, they will be side to side. So you want to make sure that your crackle is all types of directions, so that way it gives you a natural look. Once your crackle has dried, you're going to want to go in with sandpaper and just remove some of the paint. That way the bone color is showing. To get good distress, you want to add a lot of layers, and that's with paint, with crackle, with sanding down. All of that creates texture. I really want my mermaid's tail to look like it somewhat came out of the ocean, so I'm adding color here, and I'm also adding some coffee grinds, some instant coffee. I love adding coffee and Mod Podge to my projects because it gives it that very gooey, ooey grossness that kind of simulates things that have grown on the bone. Once you're done with your Mod Podge and your coffee, it should look something like this. The more it dries, it really starts to take form. Next, we're going to add the curio to our piece, where the mermaid's tail really is the oddity part. So what I'm using are just florals from Dollar Tree. You're going to want to grab their dried moss, their reindeer moss, some florals that really inspire you and keep the bone a little bit feminine and a little bit more nature-like. I love using pieces, either taxidermy or bones or things like that, that really incorporate nature. Once you have everything set in place, you're just going to want to glue it down first, so that way you have a good base for your mermaid's tail. Friendly reminder that all entries for the hashtag LLC Dollarween 21 entries to win the loaded cauldron and the Amazon gift card, all of your curio oddity entries are due on the 20th of October, and the drawing will be on October 22nd. Good luck, everyone, and have fun. Okay, last step. Now that everything is set into place, we can glue our mermaid's tail. And you guys, look how awesome this came out. I'm so obsessed. Here you can really see all the distressing, all the slight crackle, the bone. It just has so much detail, color, the coffee. It just looks so gross and so pretty all at the same time. I hope that you love this. Let's check out the next one. Okay, so for the next curio item, we're going to be doing another plaque, but this time it's an awesome, awesome lantern. I can't wait for you guys to see. So again, we're going to be painting the plaque. This time we're using white as the base, doing some crackle and coming in with some black, so that way the cracks will be very prominent. It'll be white showing through the black. And then while that's drying, you're going to take your skeleton and start painting it white. We want to get the white very much like the mermaid's tail, paint it white and then add some distress, and then we can buff out some of the edges to have that bone color show. I love using household items to do distressing, just like the coffee grind. You want to take a paper towel or anything that will help you add texture. It's all about texture. It's all about building up color to give it the most distress that these pieces can make. The Dollar Tree has awesome items, but when you repaint them, they really shine. Another awesome distress tip is if you have sand laying around, or you can get sand from the Dollar Tree. If you mix sand with Mod Podge, you get a really awesome gritty texture. And when I think of bones, especially if I'm trying to create them as if they were really old, you want that grit. You want that real nice texture. So when we come into paint, all of that sand work will really elevate your paint job. Okay, so while that's drying, we're going to do our crackle work again. So I'm going to lay out the crackle, and this time I'm going to let it dry halfway. So that way our cracks from the black paint will be really prominent. Friendly reminder for the Curio Challenge. The items should really represent an oddity or curio item using Dollar Tree. And if you don't have Dollar Tree, you can either use Dollar General, Walmart, thrifted items. Just make sure that they're low budget so that way they're aligned with anyone else who's using Dollar Tree items. When our skulls are really nice and dry, we're going to carefully, please use caution when working with any blades or cutters or X-Acto knives. So you want to always cut away from you, and what we're doing here is cutting out the eyes and a portion of the nose. Okay, so here's the fun part. We're now going to paint the skull, and the possibilities are endless. You can make them really dark. You can use browns, blacks, greens to get more of a moldy look. You can use blues. So again, you want to layer up your paint. If you're unhappy with it, take a wet piece of cloth or paper towel and just go over your sand. You can wipe off some of the colors if you're not happy, but the sand, you will see, really captures all of the colors that you're using. It gives it that grit that we were talking about. I'm loving all the texture here, so much better than the original Dollar Tree skull. You can see the sand really covered up the mouth. It's just so good and really so natural. And like I mentioned before, now's the time if you want to go back and show that bone color to really start scraping off some of your paint at this stage. That way it's more controlled. Get it at the cheekbone, like what places of the skull really stick out the most. Those are where you should sand. The chin, the nose, the cheekbone, the top of the skull, all of those are really realistic places for you to see that bone color. Now we're going to turn our skull into a functioning lantern. So what you're going to need for this is a pencil and a candle holder from the Dollar Tree. This is a simple candle holder. And you're just going to want to trace the perimeter of your candle holder. So that way you know how much of a hole to cut at the top of the head. Once you're happy with the placement of the candle holder, you're going to want to just add some glue so that way it's really nice and tight. It should be tight already, but this is really just for added precaution. Now, to bring nature to our skull and to really match the mermaid's tail, all three items that I'm making today are really cohesive with each other, so that way they can be decorated together. So I'm taking some dried moss, some reindeer moss. I've even pulled out some crystal quartz. Really make this fun. I love the idea of adding the crystals, the moss, really kind of witching it up to the oddity and curio items. So it just really starts to come together and look really organic, and I just love the juxtaposition between both of them. The next step is totally optional. I wanted my plaque to have a gold shimmering color, and I just happen to have gold wax on hand, but you can paint it brown, you can add some other colors, you can keep it black, you can keep crackling on top of crackle, which will give you a really good distressing look. But I love the gold here. So if you have gold paint or gold wax, I would definitely use that. And then again, we're going to come back in and sand some of the edges to really hone in that distressed look. Okay, you guys, this is so exciting. The last step is to glue the skull onto the plaque, and I love how he's facing down. Look at the end result, you guys. I'm obsessed. And the holes in the eyes capture the light that's coming from the candle. I love the distress work that we did on the plaque. It just looks so good, and it rains in on that curio feel, and the crystals on the top are such a nice touch. I would love to have two of these kind of side by side. I think that would be the best. Let me know what you guys think. All right, the last DIY is a real easy one and a real fun one. We're not doing any painting to the bones. If that's not your thing, I think this curio item is the one for you. You're going to want to start off with Dollar Tree's frames, Dollar Tree's glass vials, some of their moss that we already worked with, some of that heather floral that we already worked with. So what we're going to build is basically an apothecary shelf. So you can use anything to fill these apothecary jars up, but I love that thick frame that kind of almost resembles a shadow box. So here we're going to just cut a piece of paper, take out the glass from the frames, and really use this frame as just that, a shadow box. Once you have everything cut to size, you're going to want to go ahead and glue your paper down to the frame. make sure to really use paper that really jives with you. I chose like a witchy type hand tattoo drawn paper, but anything will do. You can even use cobweb, you can even use black. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So now you're going to want to choose some vials. Here I love mixing up the sizes and the thicknesses of the vials to give it a more organic look. And now I'm just going to fill them up. Fill them up with whatever you have in your florals, moss, some grass. And then the fun part is taking our mermaid skeleton or any small skeletons that you have, and you can use pieces of him to kind of put in your vial. So that way there's kind of zero waste. You're using your Dollar Tree item to the most. This apothecary was inspired by the Gothic garden over at Michael's. So I saw this and I'm like, I think I can do something with this. I love the fact that like these bones and the natural elements are inside the vials. So it was just kind of only perfect that we already have the vials from the Dollar Tree and we have the moss and all the other things. It's just a miniature version of what Michael's gives you for definitely a fraction of the price. So here I'm just cutting pieces of bones, like I said, and look how cute that is. It's so, so cute. And you can even add colored water. So what I did with some of my vials is I added some of my paint brush color, which just happened to be black. You can see that there. So, but you can add red and it will be green. How cool would that be? So really have fun with these vials. The more you work with them, the more organic they become. Once you have all your vials glued down in the position that you want them, I took the bird skeleton from Dollar Tree and I took the wings off, and I'm going to glue them down with the head in the middle. I love that. But I think what would even be also beautiful is to maybe cut out from cardboard phases of the moon, either spray paint it or paint it silver, and the moon phases on top of the vials will also be stunning. Like, that's so beautiful. If I were to do this again, I will probably opt to do the moon phases on top of the vials. And you guys, take a look at the finished product. I love, love, love this. It's really spooky. It really looks great with the candles. And I had such a blast making these. So don't forget, use the hashtag, get your curio items in, and I can't wait to see the rest. Dollarween isn't over. If you like this video, then you will love this super bingeable playlist that I'll leave here to help you get inspired for the spooky season.